when my father was sick in hospital, and we had in a tough moment of the season because we had important games in the Champions League, in the league, and I say, Coach, I need to go to see my daddy, and I was a key player, I was a very important player, and he said, listen, your family is the most important that you have in life. If you want to go 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, you can go. These moments is what I keep for me, because it was the most important moments in my life, and he shared with me. This is why I respect him, and for me, is the best coach I ever had.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Southern Manx podcast by the fans for the fans, episode 4. So got quite a lot to get through today. We're going to have a look back at the 2 games we had against Arsenal and Southampton, and of course the games that we've got coming up against Everton and West Ham. So taking back a few days, the game at Arsenal. Mark, what did you make of the team selection for that one?
Yeah, I think it was as expected. No real surprises. We got Cavani up front. I think we've been asking for Cavani up front. We got it. He went back to McFred in the middle. Obviously, that got sort of disrupted with McTominay having some kind of stomach cramps. But yeah, other than that, I think we predicted the team on the last pod. We knew which players we wanted it out. The system was always going to be the question mark. Whether with those players we went for with a diamond or it was more Liverpool, and it was more Liverpool. But obviously that changed when McTominay went off. So Martial came on. He went more sort of 4-3-3. I thought that was an interesting dynamic to the game actually, because I think that changed. That made it a bit more open. People are saying it was dull. Some people were saying it was quite a lively 0-0. I think it depends who you talk to. I thought it was everything I expected really at this point in the season with those 2 teams. We predicted it would be 0-0. It was 0-0. I think the whole game was pretty predictable. I think not really much more to add than that. I think we could have nicked it with the Cavani chances. I think I love to see Solskjaer's sort of coaching to the media after the game about how he should have taken those chances, open up his ankle. Thought that was interesting to hear, that sort of technical advice from a man who knows where the net is. But you asked about lineups. We predicted the lineups. No real surprises, and that sort of translated throughout the rest of the game, I think.
Yeah, so, and JP, off the back of a bad result during the week against Sheffield United, 0-0, is that still considered a bad result at Arsenal?
I think it's a worse result because of the result at Sheffield United. Obviously, it was a disappointing result against Sheffield United. Something that we've sort of eradicated a little bit are these sort of lapses and very poor performances against lesser sides, which obviously is a great example of what that was. So I think it would have been a better result had we won the previous game, if that makes any sense at all. I think as it was, it was a game that wasn't very entertaining. There were a few chances. Obviously, Cavani had that one that he missed, and a couple of other ones that we maybe should have put away. But it was a nothing game, really, wasn't it? It didn't really sort of ignite anything. So I think it would have been a good result if we'd put Sheffield United to bed. As it was, having lost that game, then going and getting a draw against Arsenal. I know it's a cliche, but you're looking for that reaction, aren't you? Especially sort of the results we've been getting after a setback. You want that reaction. You want to come back with a win. It's never an easy place to go. We've got a point. So it's okay. The 2 games out of those 2 games to take sort of 1 point. When you look at them together, it's not great, but we'll take the point and we'll move on.
Yeah, I mean, and sort of looking back a little bit, Nick, at our performances this season against the so-called top 6, we've only scored once, and we've got two defeats and 4 0-0s. Is there any reason, do you think, particularly behind the fact that our form isn't great against the top 6 this season?
Yeah, I mean, I do generally think there is a reason, and I think that's the over cautiousness. It's interesting that when we did this pod 3-4 weeks ago and we spoke about our poor top 6 record, and that's why we're not going to win the league this year, or perhaps that's not why we're not going to win this league this year. And then since then, we've had 2 more 0-0s against the so-called bigger boys of the league. It does come down to, I think, personnel and perhaps previous results. You can understand as a manager why you'd be cautious about it. I think it's well documented that we haven't found a centre-half partnership that we're completely comfortable with. And then we started picking up form beginning of the season or middle of the season by playing McFred. People sort of jumped on the fact that he's dropped Pogba, but actually the real reason for that was protecting the centre-halves. But it does make us more cautious in our approach, because you're taking away that one more creative player, whether it be Pogba or Greenwood or both at times. So I do think there is a separate approach to playing these so-called Big Six teams this season, and it's reflected in our results. The fact that Manchester United haven't scored in 4 games, regardless of who it is, says itself. We're Man United at the end of the day. So I do think there is a different setup from Ollie when it comes to the bigger 6 teams. In terms of the Arsenal game itself, I mean, we talked in depth last week. We talked in depth about how it was my favourite game, but actually you boys both predicted it was going to be a draw, and that's what it turned out to be. It felt to me a lot like the Liverpool game a couple of weeks back, where you could probably say that Arsenal had a lot more of the ball than what we did, but we had the better chances. You know, you could say the same thing about the Liverpool game. And then with the Arsenal game on Saturday night, Cavani had the best 2 chances. Not clear-cut by any stretch of the imagination, but we had the better chances, didn't take them. The funny thing is about football, and this is like the beauty of football, if one of those chances goes in on either game, we're saying it's an Ollie masterclass, aren't we? We're sitting here going, it's an Ollie masterclass. You know, Jose's won titles on that. We're sitting here going, it's an Ollie masterclass. They haven't gone in on the Liverpool game or the Man United game, and then it became a 0-0. But I suppose you've got to take the plus side of it. You don't want to sound negative. All right, we haven't scored in those 4 games, but we haven't conceded as well. So you can see what he's doing, protecting the Maguire and Lindelof partnership. And Mark, I think you was bang on last week, and that's probably been confirmed this week that Lindelof is the number 1 choice for Maguire. So we're keeping clean sheets. Are we keeping clean sheets because of the way we set up? I think so. I think we're playing that extra number 6. Everyone loves to talk in numbers now instead of the extra number 8. So I think there's a lot to be said for we're being cautious to not lose the game instead of winning the game. But how close have we been against Liverpool? How close have we been against Arsenal? There's 6 points there. If you get away with them with 1-0 in any season, we are sitting here with a glass of wine saying it's an Ollie masterclass. So it's very, very thin margins. It's nowhere near what it used to be, the Arsenal-Man United game. Come on, let's be honest. It's nowhere near what it used to be. But it's very thin margins. We could have easily got 6 points off of that game, off of those 2 games. And you know what? The reason why we won't win the league this year, it's not going to be because of the Sheffield United game, because it's that sort of season. You know, Burnley and Brighton have got no right to beat the champions at home in Liverpool. City had a dodgy spell early in the season, so that's not the reason why we didn't win the league this year. The reason we didn't win the league this year is because of our poor record against the top 6, and that's something to be addressed. But you can see why he does it. It's fine margins, and it was very, 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 very close to coming off.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right. Traditionally, a point away at Liverpool, a point at Arsenal can't be considered a bad result. I suppose it's just exacerbated by the fact that we lost earlier in the week. But the fact we're not losing these games, whereas, going back a couple of seasons, under Jose, it was, a back 4 plus 2 wing backs, so we're playing almost like a back 6 with 3 holding midfielders at Anfield, just so we only get whacked 1 or 2-0. We're not in that position now. We have improved. So, there's definitely some progress. I think, like you said, small margins, goal here or there, and all of a sudden it's a masterclass. But no, wasn't one for the archives, that game, certainly. But I think moving on to the next game, it certainly will be the game at Southampton.
What
would you say their strengths are of Wayne Rooney as a footballer?
His strength,
Yeah.
his power. I think his power is mentally power. It's great. He never give up. As an English player, they never give up. Always 90 minutes, always hard. This is why I love English football.
Hello and welcome back to part 2 of the Southern Manx podcast by the fans for the fans. In this section, we're going to be talking about the record equaling 9-0 win over Southampton. Nick, I'm going to come to you first. Tell me about, we'll touch on the highlights of the game, but given the draw at Arsenal, which we've just covered, heading into the Saints game, we knew they were depleted. What were your sort of overall thoughts? How Ollie approached the game and sort of outcomes overall?
Yeah, look, the overall outcome is fantastic. I don't care who you are. If you win 9-0 in the Premier League, it's always going to be considered a good result. I know Southampton were missing, I think they said 9 players. And then obviously the lads had had an absolute mare within 79 seconds, but 9-0 is 9-0. I had a fear when it went down to 10 men. I had a fear, is this now going to become a more difficult game of 10 men behind the ball? So you have to give credit to Ollie and Man United there. In terms of the overall setup, we had to get back on track, and it did seem like the perfect game. You know, home, Southampton, missing 9 players, down to 10 men. So there was no excuses after the form that we were in. So in terms of the setup, I think the only shock was probably Pogba. And we talk about it every week, the change for change's sake. But I suppose on this occasion, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. When you win 9-0, it doesn't matter. So if anything, it's worked. Here we are. This is where it's worked, the change for change's sake. It was wise at half-time to make 2 changes. So if Cavani did have a little knock, I know managers play games with the press. I don't think Cavani's got a little knock, but it's a way to get him off and save him for Saturday, because I think it is now apparent that Cavani is our main man. So good management by Ollie, I think there. I would have liked to have seen Bruno come off. I know Bruno doesn't like coming off. He stayed on for 90 minutes. That might bite us in the backside towards the end of the season, but he made another change in Shaw coming off, who has been absolutely fantastic this season or recently. So I thought Ollie managed the situation well in terms of the 10 men, the subs. And you know what? I don't care if he got embarrassing. I don't care if it got Mickey Mouse, because we had to take the banter when you lose at home to the bottom of the league. We have to take the banter when Harry Maguire gets skinned by someone he shouldn't be getting skinned by. Straight away, the 80 million flashes up, or the meme of him talking to his missus at the World Cup. We have to take it. So, you know what? We were ruthless, and I was glad to see it. There were so many pluses, and it was nice to see players express themselves by not taking the mick. And by that, I mean Greenwood didn't score on the night. Outstanding. You know, Bruno, 10 out of 10 performance I'm seeing all around. He didn't even win our man on a match poll on our Twitter account. You know, so that just says there was good performances all round. And as soon as we've all been there in our levels of football, as soon as you go 4-5-0 up, you know you're not exerting the same amount of energy that you would do at 0-0 or 1-0. So I think all in all, he's managed it well. It's in good stead for Saturday. There's no criticisms for me this week, and I'm generally pleased. And you know what? That goal difference looks a hell lot healthier now as well, especially after Liverpool's result last night.
Yeah, definitely. You're right to call out the sort of man of the match poll. I think Wan-Bissaka got it for our followers and whoever voted on that. Thank you. But looking throughout the team, I think it was only De Gea, Lindelof, Maguire, Fred, and Van der Beek from the 14 players that featured that weren't involved in a goal. So Wan-Bissaka scored. I think he should have got an assist for one of Martial's goals. 2 assists for Shaw. McTominay scored. Greenwood assist. Bruno 2 assists and a penalty. Rashford scored. Cavani scored. Martial got 2. Dan James got 1, and Van der Beek, I mean, at least he got off the bench. So, do you know what I mean? I think it was, like you say, ruthless, and we'll come on to how Ollie's team is more ruthless than any other manager since Ferguson at Man United. We'll get onto that shortly. But Joe, come to you with that goal against Southampton. Marcus Rashford moved up to 9th in the all-time top goal scorer. Well, in the Premier League era, all competitions for Man United, overtaking your favourite Eric. Now, so yeah, he's number 9. Not your typical number 9, Rashford, but what do you think he can achieve? I mean, he's still only young. How high can he get up that list?
I think there's no limit. There's no limit to how many goals he can score for this club. Obviously, it makes it sweeter that he's a boyhood United lad, come up through the academy, makes it all the sweeter. And I think he is improving all the time. He's getting better all the time. The fact that he obviously started that goal scoring record at such a young age when he sort of burst onto the scene like Michael Richards did. So I think the sky's the limit, Mark. I don't think there's any limit. He's got loads of good years ahead of him. Obviously, it did look like at one point in his career that he was out wide for now, and eventually he'd be that sort of focal point down the middle. I think because of the type of player he is and because of the pace he's got, I don't actually think that will ever come to fruition. It depends on obviously who we've got as centre forward at the moment. As we all know, my thoughts on Cavani. Yes, we might have to use him sparingly. He's not going to play every game, all game, etc. But having that type of centre forward, a different type of old-fashioned centre forward up front that can do the lot, I don't think we're losing anything having Rashford out wide. And I think that's credit to the man and the player, really, because I think he sort of realised that he could utilise that position. He may not always be down the middle, and I think he's got better and he's improved. And I think he can continue to do that. And all the while he's doing that, then he's going to keep scoring goals. He is a goal scorer, and he will keep putting that ball in the net or getting the positions, and he will keep scoring. So the sky's the limit, and I think he'll go pretty near, even our record holder Rooney. I do think that. I think that highly of him. I think he'll have a long career at the club. I think he may even end up being captain one day. I can see that happening because the type of sort of lad he is. Obviously, everything that's been going on off the field with what he's been doing with school lunches, etc. I think that's a strong possibility.
Yeah, it's a good shout, and I think as whenever he plays sort of centre forward back to goal, you can see that's not his game. He likes sort of getting out wide, isolating fullbacks, running at them. He's given Trent the run around in previous years. The young lad this year, Liverpool, Williams, got a taste of that as well. So yeah, he's only got 2 now to catch up with Beckham on 85. Next one up is Ronaldo in 7th place on 118. So he's got a little bit of a way to go there. But Nick, did you want to add something to that one?
Yeah, I mean, today at work, actually, I was doing some sort of Big Shaq quick maths about this sort of Rashford scenario, and I worked out by the time he was 30, if he gets 20 goals a season for the next 8 seasons, he'll only actually be around like 10 or 15 goals away from Wayne Rooney, and he can easily get that after in his twilight years of 30 to 33, 34. I agree with Joe. You can't see him playing for anyone else. So I do think he will be Man United's record top goal scorer, barring serious injuries. But he's on 15 goals this season. It's not beyond the realms of possibilities that he'll end on 20 this year. So if you did that, if you get 20 goals a season for the next eight seasons, he gets close to Rooney as it is, and he hasn't even broken into his 30s yet. So I think he will become the Man United's top goal scorer. So when we're doing this in 8 or 9 years' time, boys, we'll go back to episode 4. And but yeah, I completely agree with everything Joe said there. Like, I can't see him playing for anyone else, and the numbers just add up. And I saw something on Twitter the other day. I don't know if you posted it, Mark, but Rashford's numbers compared to who everyone else thinks is world class, so your Manes and things like that. Rashford in goal involvements is unbelievable.
Yeah, I love it, and love to hear the stories as well. And obviously he's done a lot in the public around lockdown and COVID and stuff. But when he talks about how Man United looked after him as a kid, got him to training. You know, when his mum obviously might have been struggling, and he talks openly about it, everything the club did around that time. And that's the thing. You kind of hope that, you know, he will stay for the duration, because you wouldn't want to lose him. He could be that captain. He seems like a bit of a leader. He's very good with his words off the pitch. So hopefully, he can keep banging them in. Joe, did you have something to finish up on there?
Yeah, just as a caveat to that, I mean, I know this is a Man United podcast, and by nature of the fact we're all Man United fans, obviously a lot of it will be a bit of a love-in, but what I would like to just highlight is, although I highly rate Rashford, I'd like to make that clear, and I think he's a fantastic player, and obviously what we've just been talking about, and the goals, etc., and he's improving all the time. One thing I would like to see more of, and I think he has got better at it, but I think there's still room for improvement, is I feel sometimes when he has the ball, he's a little bit slow in making a decision on what he wants to do with the ball. I feel that he needs a bit more guile in terms of beating players and actually taking players on. I feel like sometimes he relies too much on his pace a little bit, and he runs directly at players, and he ends up fumbling the ball or getting tackled or losing the ball. And you know, that's a small, not a criticism, just an observation that I think that may be something that Ollie might have identified as well, and hopefully might be able to work on with him, because I feel like if he sort of can bring that into his game a bit more, and he has done, he's improved at it, but he can do a bit more of it, have a few more ideas in terms of going past people with the ball. I think that he could only improve further with that.
Yeah, definitely. I again agree. I think that comes probably with a little bit of time. You can see, I mean, little glimpses of it where you just want him to be a little bit more decisive. Again, go back to the Arsenal game, ball comes to him at the back post, just take it first time, get a shot off. He takes a touch, lovely little control, but the chance has gone. Whereas against Southampton in the week, again, similar position on the right side, flashed a ball in early on, and it goes in off the defender for an own goal. And you think little moments like that, hopefully it does sort of come with age a little bit. But on to another striker who's now at the helm at Old Trafford, Ollie Solskjaer. Now, United have scored at least 6 goals in 16 games in the Premier League era. It's funny when you look at the stats, Ollie's actually scored in half of those games and has been the manager for the last 3. Our points per game average is up this season. Last season was about 1.75. It's average 2 points a game this season. Yes, we want to see a bit more in the big games, but I'll come into you. That you can see there's progression. You can see that it's moving in the right direction. Surely now that kind of clearly, you know, it needs to keep it up for the rest of the season. But we wanted progression this season. Can you see it?
Yeah, I think it'd be foolish to say that it hasn't improved. You know, the league position certainly reflects that. And whilst it's been disappointing to, you know, lose in semi-finals of cup competitions, you know, you've got to have reached the semi-final in the first place to get there. So of course, you know, that is an improvement. And you know, we cast our minds back, and you look at, say, like the Van Gaal era, and we had, I don't know how many games in a row where we just didn't score in the first half whatsoever. You know, if you're at one end of the stadium, you just wouldn't see a goal almost, which is dreadful. I genuinely, there was a period of time where I found it extremely difficult. In fact, a few games it was almost impossible to watch United. It was so boring and so difficult, you know, and that's what makes one of the great things about our club is, you know, the attacking and the entertainment, and when we lost that. So, you know, goals are of course entertaining, and as a result of good attacking football, and it is much better now from our point of view. I think when managers are judged, they're judged on, you know, performance, they're judged on trophies, and they're nowadays, I think they're more and more judged on how much they improve players. You know, people like Pep and Klopp are lauded for how much they improve players, and they've done that. You know, Shaw is chalk and cheese from what he was before. You know, somebody where Jose almost made out like he had to plug him in like a PlayStation controller and then tell him, you know, left, right, up, down, square, circle, X. And now, you know, obviously that would be his own doing as well, of course. But I imagine a large proportion of that's to do with the, you know, the management team and the staff there to help him get his confidence and push on. So he's clearly improved. Fred has improved as well. McTominay continues to improve when he gets a chance. Martial has improved, although perhaps he still isn't quite where we think he could be at this stage in his career. The majority of players have improved. Greenwood's been given a chance, has done so well, has been given the number 11 shirt. So players have improved. I know there's still room for more improvement. You could argue that, a big improvement in Marcel would be that he smiles after scoring a goal. That would be great. But yeah, overall, I think, we players are improving, the team's improving, we're scoring goals. That's what we want to see. And it is a progression thing, if you think where we were, pre-Ollie and where we are now. If I'm being honest, I didn't really expect us to be challenging the way that we have this season. I know we're still perhaps maybe falling a little bit short in the last, fortnight or so, but we're still there or thereabouts. And if you had said to us before the start of the season, you can take maybe, third or fourth again, and you're fairly competent and comfortable in that area, you'd probably take that given the squad that we have and the way that we didn't improve on the squad in the summer the way that we might have liked. So yeah, I think you have to say that we are improving, and I think you can see that we will continue to improve. And with some good recruitment in the summer, I can only see that getting better and better.
Yeah, I agree. And I wouldn't. It's funny when you look back at the managers that have come in since Ferguson. You sit here thinking, yeah, the progression's now starting to come through with Solskjaer, which just sounds mental when you say that, considering we've had Mourinho, one of the best managers in the modern era. Just look at his trophy cabinet to see what he's done in the game. But I wouldn't swap Ollie for any of them. I wouldn't swap them for Ollie in this current moment, which again seems funny because you think, would another team necessarily be looking at Ollie to come in? So say, whatever happens over the next few years, what's his next step? Is Ollie going to be at the club for the next X years and create a legacy? I mean, that's big talk right now, and we're definitely not there yet. We need to see a lot more before that starts to happen. But it'd be interesting to see what happens with Ollie over the next few years. If he can keep this progression up, then the sky's the limit. But yeah, overall, we're delighted with the Saints win. But it's now about keeping up the momentum and finishing the sort of second half of the season strong, securing top four, and then who knows what we can go on and achieve. Try and push City all the way, maybe a cup win, but we'll get onto that in the next few pods.
Well, second half we created a lot of chances, and Ronaldo was causing lots of problems throughout the game.
Yes, Cristiano, how did you enjoy tonight?
Yeah, it's a good game. It's a good performance. Team win. It's important.
Welcome back to part 3 of the Southern Manx podcast. So the next section, we're going to be looking ahead to our Premier League game at the weekend against Everton. We're at home again. Mark, I'll come to you first. Obviously, with the game in the FA Cup against West Ham closely following this one against Everton on Tuesday, what do you think Ollie's going to do in terms of team selection, bearing in mind, obviously, that game coming up? Do you think this is going to tell us about what he's prioritising this season?
Yeah, good question. I would like to think that Ollie won't go in and spring too many surprises. I think you saw the subs that he made against Southampton. Hopefully, will tell what he's thinking about the Everton game. Cavani, Shaw, Rashford all came off, so you'd expect them to start. I think Lindelof it has sort of put himself back in as the number one partner to Maguire. I think he always was. I mentioned that earlier in the week. I think he'll go with him. Two clean sheets as well in the last 2 games that Lindelof's been back. Wan-Bissaka obviously picked himself at right back, and he don't change the keeper. So back 5 should be as is. I think he'll go again for the McFred pivot. Question marks around Pogba. Obviously sat out against Southampton, so does he come back in? Does he think maybe slotting him in if he goes with a diamond, or put him out on one of the wings and kind of spring a little bit of a surprise in that sense? And then it's Bruno. So I think it becomes a question mark over probably Pogba or somebody else for one of the spots on the wing, whether that's Greenwood, Martial maybe on the left, and Rashford comes into the right. So I think that's probably the debate. But it's Ollie. He could spring a surprise. Dan James comes on and scores against Southampton. No disrespect to the guy, but I would be disappointed if he were to come in. Same with people like Mata who've been out in the wilderness recently. So yeah, I think you've got to go strong. The league title, although is still a bit of a long shot, I still want us to be pushing City as far as we can go. So I want to win this game against Everton. We'll come to the cup afterwards, but I would say use your squad, make the changes that you need to, not change for change's sake. Whoever you think needs a genuine rest, give them a rest, and let's go strong.
Nick, what's your view on that?
Yeah, I completely agree. The only thing I think will be a giveaway and why Pogba will start is Fred. I don't think Fred starts because he took Luke Shaw off at half time, and the obvious choice left back for left back was Telles. He didn't put Telles on and put Fred on. Fred got 90 minutes. So there's the excuse to not play Fred because he's played 90 minutes and Pogba comes in, leaving McTominay the holding midfield. That's what I think will happen just off of that. But everything else I agree with, but I think we're at home. Pogba's rested. And the left back, the fact that Fred played 90 minutes the other day, I think is the easy out for him not to play or start this Saturday.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much for that. Okay, coming to you next, though. It's been well documented, and I think obviously in they have sort of had a bit of a coup, really, when they appointed a manager of the ilk of Carlo Ancelotti. They're a very, very well organised side. The fullbacks get forward well, get lots of balls into the box, particularly Luca Dean on the left-hand side. How do you think this one's going to play out?
Yeah, I mean, Everton, in recent seasons with their recruitment have threatened the sort of, the established top six, top four, but I think this season has been the closest. I think in particular this season's been very good with their recruitment, especially in the midfield. He's got them well drilled. He's got a good setup. Calvert-Lewin has really come into some form, forcing his way into the England side. I think Coleman has always been a good outlet on the right-hand side. I think, we once courted him during the Moyes era, I seem to remember. And Luca Digne on the left-hand side, regular for France, is really, really dangerous on that side. So they give themselves good width. And I think that that's reflected in their league position. Ancelotti is a seasoned veteran, probably, would you say maybe top 5, top 6, maybe better than that managers in world football. He's always going to command, a big job, could probably go anywhere he likes, really, I guess. And I think bringing that wealth of experience to Everton with some good recruitment that they've had, particularly this season, in my opinion, is why they're doing well. So the way that the game will pan out, I think it'll be quite close. I think being at home will give us just the edge in that respect. Their dangerous areas are going to be in the wide areas, so we need to be cautious with that. I'm not entirely sure I agree with Nick's assessment. I think that perhaps because of their danger in wide areas, that they would having either Fred or McTominay wouldn't necessarily be enough to help cover those wide areas. I think you need the batteries and the energy of Fred and McTominay to help give support to the fullbacks when they move forward. But it's a difficult one to say, because as I've always said this season, I think we kind of sacrificed our right hand side with Wan-Bissaka. So I think you could argue perhaps that he's going to do a job on Digne. So we can afford to maybe have Pogba in the middle, because we just need perhaps maybe support from a holding midfielder on our left hand side. But yeah, I still feel confident. I think the energy that we've brought to our side of recent, the attacking flair, the pace, will get us over the line in that game.
Absolutely. Just a little word again on Ancelotti. Something I heard recently, which I thought was sort of a mark of the stature of a manager in terms of keeping it simple for players, because I think in this day and age we do have a tendency to maybe overcomplicate the game. And when it comes down to it, it is a simple game. It is football. And one of the things I heard that I thought really sort of showcased the manager he is that apparently the way he got Dominic Calvert-Lewin scoring all these goals this season was he simply said to him, try and score a goal with your first touch. That is what has sort of brought about this sort of change and the goals going in. Obviously famously managed the most offside man in world football in Filippo Inzaghi.
He's born offside.
He was born offside.
Yeah, Fergie, wasn't it? Born offside.
I've also heard multiple times from sort of top players that played with him, trained with him, was that he turned up and he looked like he shouldn't be on the same park as a lot of them. But the guy, you know, scored goals for fun, didn't he? So, yeah, I think that's the mark of a good manager. And I think they will be set out well. You can guarantee that. They'll be set out well. They've got good quality. And that kind of leads me on to my next question, Mark. I was just going to sort of ask you all these players that they've got coming back from injury now. Obviously, we've touched on Luca Dean in particular as a threat. How do you see their main threats for this game?
Yeah, I think with Luca Dean, they'll go through him on the left hand side. They look to get crosses in the box for the big man, Calvert-Lewandowski. I think James is back. You don't want. I think if you're Ancelotti, you don't want James with chalk on his boots tracking Luke Shaw. I think if he goes with that, he's not lost the game, but that will be a big mistake. I think you want James in the middle creating, and that to O's point, that might be where you see Ollie go with some with the double pivot to look after his threat. Sigurdsson as well in and around the box. So we see. I mean, the one question mark they've got is the goalkeeper. Olsen come in against Leeds. Pickford has hurt his ribs. Had a good game, but whether Pickford comes back in is a question mark. If he does, you know, you fancy chances in certain situations. He hasn't been that solid this season. There's been a few blunders, few errors. But yeah, I mean, I'm confident. Think back to the League Cup game. Think back to the league game when we were a little below on confidence. We just got dumped out the Champions League. Question marks about Ollie, and we turned in a fine performance that day after going one down. It was quite convincing in the end. Thought the League Cup was fairly convincing as well. Obviously both away, but yeah, I would say to your point, Joe, Calvert-Lewin wants to score from his first touch. That's going to be that says crosses to me. That says balls in the box, chances to finish, and I think that they will look to create a lot through Dean. I think he's got 6 assists in 12, as Nick said earlier. And they're creative players. I think it will be sort of little dinks into Calvert-Lewin from clever positions in and around the box. So yeah, a lot of defending for us to do, but we're at home and we've got plenty of threats of our own.
I completely agree, and I think it will be more of a tactical affair, maybe. So, in terms of predictions, then I'll come to you first, though. What are we saying for this battle at Old Trafford?
I think it could be a little stalemate in terms of tactics. I think in the Leeds game, it looked like they had a bit of a 4-2-3-1, and I know that Ollie likes to employ that. So hopefully, it won't be too much of a stalemate and teams cancelling each other out. But I think we will be winning 3-1 with this game.
Mark?
Well, I said 2-1 against Southampton, and that was 9-0. Better success in the Arsenal game, 0-0, and it was 0-0. Not sure about this one. 3-1 is quite a niche scoreline to guess. Another clean sheet, that would be 3 on the bounce, and I think we'll probably concede. I'm going to stick with last week's prediction of 2-1 United.
2-1 United. Nick, what about you?
Yeah, I fancy us here. I think some of our better performances this season have been in the Everton games, both away. I think the way that Everton set up suits us. I don't think Rodriguez wants to be in a battle with McTominay and Fred or Maguire. I think if you keep Calvert-Lewin quiet, and by that I mean, you know, the crosses into the box, You know, for them scrappy goals, I don't think they offer a lot. They're well drilled. They're well set up. It'll be difficult, but I fancy us 2-0. 2-0 United win.
2-0. Okay, yeah, I think it'll be a tight game. As we sort of alluded to earlier, they'll obviously be well organised away from home. May not be throwing absolutely everything out trying to get the win. I think we'll nick it, and it'll be that man Cavani. I reckon it'll be 1-0, and it'll be a beautiful header where, you know, like one of these ones you could even dream about doing, where he arcs his neck in some weird sort of angle with the ball behind him and absolutely launches it bottom bins. 1-0. Mark, did you want to add something there?
Yeah, I wanted to throw out a shout out to Nick because he really enjoyed Cavani's header against Southampton.
Well, one off the post.
No, you don't see enough of the headed goals anymore. Like the crosses, and he sent it back the way it came from. But what was so beautiful about it was he stood still. Like sometimes the best movement is no movement, and he planted himself back across the keeper. He's a big lad, that McCarthy. Still no chance, and that's a sign of a proper number 9. I think, you know, JP, we were talking about it back on episode 1. You know, that crucial number 9 in the box. No one can score goals like that, like Cavani at our club. But yeah, beautiful header. You don't see enough of that nowadays, and yeah, beautiful header.
And you don't see enough of our strikers smiling after they score as well, so that's always good to see.
So here's a question, lads. I know Haaland's the obvious choice to a lot of people, or Kane, but realistically, if you were to go out and get any number 9, and this is a bit left field, but any number 9, that your typical number 9, like a young Cavani, give me a name. Who would it be?
Doesn't really exist that kind of striker much anymore, does it? That's kind of traditional kind of number 9, kind of, you know, back to goal target. It doesn't. Haaland seems to be the last sort of one of that ilk I can think of that age group, really. Kane, Lewandowski, of the typical 9s, Cavani. I mean, Nick, you have a grin on your face. Are you going to make me look silly and pull out a name of the hat?
Lukaku.
No.
We had one.
Not on your Nelly, mate. No chance.
We had the number 9.
No, not having it. I did see a wild rumor that said Man City were going to be in for Lukaku. I thought, yeah, then there's a pig flying outside my house.
But hasn't Haaland got something pretty low in terms? I've seen, I don't know whether this is true, obviously in the gossip columns, but something like a 60 or 70 odd million release clause, which seems extremely low for a player of his caliber. I saw something of that now. Obviously don't know how true these rumours are, but it seems very low.
Not active until the summer of 2022. So this summer, if we're ever going to get Haaland, or if anyone's ever going to get Haaland without a fight, it's this summer. Because next season, everyone suddenly has that money.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, it would be a great one to see happen, wouldn't it? Getting him in. I think, you know, the question you posed there, Mark, I think he's the only man for the job, really. And if we could get that one over the line, I think it'd be fantastic for us. Okay, yeah, great part of that, lads. Really enjoyed that discussion. So that's the end of part 3. Please join us again for part 4, where we'll be looking ahead to the FA Cup clash against Moises Hammers.
Cristiano, I don't think I've ever heard a former player come back and get such a good reception. Was that quite emotional for you at the start?
It was unbelievable. It was an emotional moment for me, for the both games, especially tonight. It was unbelievable. I don't have words to explain what I feel.
Welcome back to the Southern Manx podcast, part 4, by the fans, for the fans. We're going to look forward now. We're going to take a break from league action and look forward to the FA Cup. Orlando, I'll come to you first. I know we touched upon it a little bit last week, but what sort of job has David Moyes done? But more importantly, considering we're all Man United fans, what do you think the perception of David Moyes' legacy is with Man United, considering he is a former manager?
Yeah, I think we touched on it last time. League position reflects how well a side's doing, and I think West Ham are probably, of their own admission of their fans, probably punching above their weight a little bit in terms of their league position. I think yesterday or the day before, whenever it was, winning away at Villa, coupled with Liverpool losing again at home. A bit like buses, isn't it? Don't lose for how many years and then lose twice on the spin. I think puts them only a couple points behind Liverpool in fourth, I think. So, they're very much in that. And that, the difference between, top and sort of fifth and sixth, there's not a lot of difference in the points. So they're very much in there. And I think, again, similarly with Everton, it's probably down to some good recruitment. I think Ben Rama's a really good reinforcement from their point of view. Really enjoyed watching him in the Championship. I think he's one of the few players that kind of still excite you in the, I might say, Ronaldinho style. And what I mean by that is, his flicks and tricks. He's there to entertain. His highlights reel alone is superb. I think one of his last goals for Brentford before he moved, the commentator was oohs and ahs Gary Neville style. So I think he'll only get better there. I think the sign of any good signing is when they get into the FIFA Team of the Week. And Mr. Thomas Souček, I think that's how he pronounced it, has once again got himself in the FIFA Team of the Week. And 86, I might add. For those of you who know about that sort of stuff, not really my kind of thing, but he's been great, hasn't he, this season for them? He's done really, really well. I think he's done a good job, Moisey. I'm laughing because Moisey for me is fellow Man United fan Andy Tate on another platform is I'm sorry to say again, it's Moisey. And that to me is all I can ever think about when it comes to David Moyes. You got the job on a technicality. That to me is just what my pictures of Moisey. I think it's a poison chalice, wasn't it? Fergie getting to the fans, get behind the next manager, get behind what you're doing. I think they had, a little application go out on Indeed, which was, are you Scottish? Have you been in England for a while? Are you a free agent? And I think that was it. And, none of the recruitment agents or HR vetted the candidates. And Moisey was the only one left. I think we all hoped it would do well. And it was all like, well, yeah, he's done a good job at Everton. I'm sure with the resources at United and the players, he'll take it onto that next level. But I don't remember thinking that was a superb appointment. It was a bit like, okay, well, we trust the club, we trust Fergie, we'll take that next step. And I think the first game of the season we won away at Swansea 4-0, 4-1, something like that. And it just sort of seemed business as usual. Yeah, 4-1. And then from there, it just sort of went nosedived, really. And I think, he was on a hide into nothing, really, wasn't he? Yet he probably changed a bit too much too quick. He then went to Sociedad and then, uno, dos y tres, that sort of stuff. That was about the highlight of his career as well. But he's a good guy, seems like a decent bloke. Hopefully none of his players are shagging his daughter at West Ham this time, like Zaha. And yeah, wish him all the best, really.
No, fair enough. And I think, yeah, it was always, I think, the key point there was it was always going to be a poison chalice. The first person after Ferguson was probably always going to fail. But in David Moyes' shoes, how do you ever say no to Man United, especially when you're champions, 11 points clear and your squad contains Robin van Persie, Rio Ferdinand, Nemanja Vidic, Ryan Giggs, Michael Carrick, Wayne Rooney. How do you ever say no to that? He said yes to that, and somehow he's got this West Ham team in a higher position than what he did with that Man United squad. So, it is a bizarre season. But, no, did he get a fair chance? Who knows? Was he in over his head? Probably. So, Joe, we'll come to yourself now. And I know it's hard to predict the future, and we've touched on the Everton game previously, but where do you think Ollie's head is? Does Ollie look at this table now, bearing in mind that City are ahead in the league with games in hand, although their current games coming up include Tottenham, Liverpool and Arsenal. Does Ollie still think he's in a title race here? Or does he think the FA Cup is the most realistic route to silverware? I.e., what's your thoughts on the selection ahead? I know we can't predict too much, but where do you think Ollie's thinking's at?
Yeah, I think it's two different things. I think it's what I think he should do and what I think Ollie actually will do. And what I think is that we're in both competitions still. Yes, we're not in as good a position as we were a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, but I think we're still, second in the table. There's no reason why we can't sort of make a good tilt at the title. So I think, he should be going for both competitions. That for me would involve slightly different teams for each game, depending on obviously the opponents we're playing, who's available. My concern is that Ollie will put everything into the league still, even though maybe you could argue the FA Cup is the best chance of silverware, just because of what's happened previously, and we have obviously talked about it on past pods as well. So yeah, I think that he may try and prioritise the league, and he'll put out a weakened side for the FA Cup. But I hope he doesn't do that. I hope he does put out a good side for each of those games and maybe rest a couple of players.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of in your boat as well, JP. I still think Ollie thinks he's in the title race here, given the selection against Southampton. There's only one change. I think he still thinks he's in a title race. It makes you think what he's going to do against West Ham. But as we spoke about last week, let's hope it's not change for change's sake. So Mark, sorry, moving on to the opposition. Where do you see West Ham threatening? It's a difficult game. The away fixture, we had to bring Bruno on at half time to rescue it. It is difficult, but at home, we have a better record, as you might expect, against West Ham than we did away. And obviously the FA Cup tie is at home. So in terms of West Ham's setup and play and threats, what are you thinking?
Yeah, it's going to be a funny one, this. Obviously, after we saw the Liverpool game in the league and how different that was in the Cup. I wonder whether you'll get a bit of that between the league and the Cup, where, teams taking different competitions and adjusting their style differently. Maybe we might see some of that. But in terms of West Ham, they're a funny bunch. Obviously, Lingard won't play. He got a start with last night. So obviously he's cup tied anyway, so he won't play. They're a different side with and without Antonio up top, I think. Bizarrely, he doesn't strike me as the best centre forward in the league from a technical ability, but he does put himself around a bit. Again, not the best finisher. They're a weird team. I look at them man for man, and you think, how are you sort of fifth? Great man management from the Messiah. But no, on a serious note, I like, obviously Rice is decent in the middle. I think he keeps them ticking over, very solid. I like the sort of three that they play in behind Antonio. It's usually sort of like Bowen, maybe Ben Rama, one other. They kind of rotate a bit from Fornals to Lanzini. Yarmolenko, yeah, they've got a few sort of similar players, but the main thing about West Ham is not really any individuals. I think maybe other than Souček, who's turning into a little bit of a Fellaini type figure for him, getting in important goals, arriving late, aerial ability. I don't really think it's any one individual is their strength. It's more the sum of the parts. They're well drilled. They're not going to come to us and give us any. Not going to take it lightly. They'll be there to cause an upset. If you remember, Dimitri Payet scored against us in a FA Cup game a few years ago for West Ham. Di Canio as well. The offside goal, I think, with Barthez asleep. So do you know what I mean? I think West Ham will come to this game to cause an upset. They won't take it lightly. They will be in your face. They'll be well drilled. Moyes will be there with a bit of a point to prove as well. Again, I think I agree with the lads. Difficult job when he come in at United. With all the change going on at the time, David Gill and Ferguson kind of sold him a bit of a dream there, and that was difficult for him. And obviously that wasn't a job for him, and he's come back again now with West Ham and doing bits. But that's not through. I think that's all through hard work and regimented style. He's found a group of players that work for him, even at the back, like Chris. What's his name? Dawson. Can't remember his name. Craig Dawson.
Craig Dawson, yeah.
Out of the wilderness. I can't remember where he was before. I remember him being at West Brom for a bit. Yeah. He's come in. He scored a goal the other week. Ogbonna, centre half with him. That's what I mean. They're not, apart from probably Rice and Souček, I think they that's a decent combination. They've got some ability. The rest of them are, like I say, it's the sum of the parts, and that's what we need to make sure it's in our team selection. If we want to take the FA Cup seriously, make your team selection a serious one, and rotate where you can, but keep a core, keep a decent spine. Would be my advice to Ollie if he wants it.
Yeah, I agree, and some of their players do scream David Moyes, don't they? But he is a hard-working manager of hard-working players. Just wondered, JP, if you had anything to add to that.
Yeah, just on Moisey and sort of, you know, his sort of time at United, there were two things that really sort of stood out to me, and that I still sort of remember now, that made me think it wasn't going to work out. The first one was every time I saw him in an interview or at a press conference, he looked very shifty in his seat, and I always felt that he didn't feel that he should be there in some way. And I think that, you know, the players can sniff that out, the staff can sniff that out. I think that really was a big thing for me at the time. Another one was, it was one of those, you know, transfer windows where we were linked with this player, that player, and Fabregas might be coming in. And in the end, what happened was we could have signed Marouane Fellaini 2 weeks earlier for a release clause of about 24 million, if I recall. And actually what happened was we panicked with about 10 minutes left of the window, and we had to pay 29 million or something like that. And I think for me, those two things at the start of the season, that said it all, and that sort of set the tone for his short career as manager of our great club.
Yeah, there was a lot of strange Moyes ones, from the Zaha daughter rumours to the hiding in a nightclub in Spain on pre-season to the 84 crosses of destiny against Fulham.
Videos of Phil Jagielka. He got
showing Rio and Vidic to the best centre back.
Didn't he ban something like fish and chip night or something? Rio Ferdinand said he was livid with that there was a tradition or something like that. That got banned by him or something.
Yeah, and when Give It Giggsy's the end of the season, who had to bring back ketchup into the canteen. Yeah, there was a lot of strange things, but you know, David Moyes, a hard-working manager. I always look back on his time, just to sort of put a bow on this section of. I always look back on his time as I think he will have regrets. And that's probably the worst thing you can do in life. If you go into any sort of job and you leave thinking you didn't get to do it your way. And I look back at David Moyes' tenure of, we started off as the 4-4-1-1 with Rooney behind Van Persie, to then trying to factor in Januzaj, a number 10, Kagawa, a number 10, Rooney, a number 10, Fellaini, a number 10, Mata in January, a number 10. We suddenly had 4 or 5 number 10s. So that cut out the famous Man United wingers. So I just think David Moyes never found the formation or the system or the players. I think he would leave with regrets. And then there was all these bizarre stories that have become kind of folklore and are probably worth a podcast on their own. But yeah, so that sums up Moyesy. Let's just round it up with a quick prediction. Orlando, I'll start with you then. To FA Cup next week. Are we in the next round of the Cup? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think we've got enough to get over the finishing line, really. With our squad, I think overall, if you'd say our FA Cup team is better than West Ham's FA Cup team. I think both teams will have changes. The amount of changes, obviously, will remain to be seen. But I think 2-0 for us.
JP?
Yeah, I agree with Orlando. I think there'll be changes to both sides, but I think that we will win this game, and I'm going 3-0.
And then Mark?
I'm going close on this one. Might be a Bruno Fernandes penalty or something like that. 1-0 United for me.
Okay, yeah, and I'll make it a full house. If you want to win the FA Cup, you've got to beat West Ham at home. So 4 out of 4, United into the next round. Hopefully, we'll see you next week. But moving on to our final section then. A lot of talk earlier in the podcast has been around Marcus Rashford potentially beating Wayne Rooney's record. So straight after this podcast, we're going to put a poll up, and we appreciate and love your interaction and comments and subscribers. So we want to know where you guys think Marcus Rashford will finish at the end of his Man United career. So we're going to give you 4 different options in terms of the goals scored, and we want to know where you think Marcus Rashford will finish up at the end of his Man United career. So that's been it for episode 4 of the Southern Manx podcast by the fans for the fans. We've touched upon a lot tonight. The drab draw away at Arsenal, the record equaling home win over Southampton. We've looked forward to a very difficult tie against Carlo Ancelotti's Everton, and we all think we're going to be in the next round of the FA Cup at home to West Ham. On top of that, you've got a poll to get your teeth sunk into regarding Marcus Rashford's Man United goal-scoring career. Hope you've enjoyed the show. We certainly enjoyed bringing it to you. Until next week, when we get to relive all of these moments and talk about upcoming matches, I've been Nick, and we have had Mark, Orlando, and JP on the show. We'll see you next time. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Cristiano, only one place to start, or was it a penalty?
If the referee is decision for a referee, for me it's penalty. You need to see in television. I don't understand. Against Cristiano, every time it's polemic. I don't know why.